New York sports is perhaps the biggest market in all of sports. And today we're speaking with their lead sports anchor on Fox 5 New York, Tina Cervasio. Tina, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Chase. Thank you for having me on.
I'm so glad you're here. Obviously, you do so much more, even just outside of your sports anchoring duties at Fox 5 New York. And we're going to break that all down real quick before we really break down some New York sports teams and your career. How did you really find your love for sports reporting, and what's been your career path since to get to this point?
It was a long time ago. Well, I always loved sports. I mean, I grew up in a family where a lot of my aunts and uncles and my parents' cousins were coaches. They were coaches mostly at the high school level, maybe some small Division III colleges, every sport, football, crew, wrestling. Let's see what else, softball, baseball, basketball, men's and women's basketball, you name it. So we were always a family that was going to sporting events to support the coaches and players and things like that. I tried all the sports, soccer, basketball. My biggest strengths were in gymnastics and cheerleading, and soccer sort of, but that fizzled out after a while. But I just always wanted to combine somehow my love of sports with the ability to talk about it. So when I started seeing women like Linda Cohn and Leslie Visser and Hannah Storm and Robin Roberts specifically on television covering sports, doing the interviews that I would love to do with different sports athletes, whether it was Olympians like Mary Lou Retton, who is my favorite, or Summer Sanders, a swimmer, to like Phil Simms and all the big players like Reggie Jackson and people like that I was watching as I was growing up. So that is sort of where it all started, how I wanted to become a sports broadcaster.
And I remember when I first actually spoke with you mentioned Linda Cohn and Leslie Visser as people who really inspired you and people you idolized as you really started to make a path in this industry. I think this is actually what I spoke about with you first when I first met you, just kind of about some of the challenges you face as a woman. I mean, this is a male dominated industry, and you've worked your way into a really prestigious role in one of the biggest markets in sports. Can you just speak about maybe some of the challenges you face as a woman in sports broadcasting, but also how you've overcome them to get to the place where you're at now?
I think the beauty right now is it's male dominated at the executive level, but I think we're seeing on television, you can go watch a day on sports on ESPN, and you can get your Sports Center, you can get your NBA pregame show, then it's going to throw to their NFL shows, and there's, if not a full cast of women, there's going to be two, there's going to be one, there's always going to be that. So, and I think people don't flinch as much anymore. I mean, one of my jobs is at CBS Sports Network, where we need to talk. It's a full female panel. Our executive producer is a woman. She created the show. Then we have line producers. 9 out of 10 times it's a woman, because that's who's available. That's who wants to work on the show. And the initial directors, there were several women. And then, it's always who's available that day and who's on schedule. But that is how it is formatted. And it was unique 10 years ago. But now we've celebrated our 10th anniversary with that show, and there's so many all-female shows. So I think that's what's great. Where I started and where the challenge was early on, say in locker rooms when you were the only woman, or there was only one other woman, and maybe she was working for a newspaper and I was working for a local TV station. So we were getting different things and in different spots trying to get different stories. But and I remember there was one woman sometimes when I was covering, I know people in New York cringe, the Boston Red Sox. I was up in Boston for 2 years at the New England Sports Network. The Red Sox won the World Series in 2007, 2 incredible years. I was there 06, 07. And there were definitely days where I was the only woman, but then there were days where incredible women were there, and I befriended them, and they are still in this industry. So I think the numbers have grown. So those were the challenges at first, being alone, so to speak, not having a friend to talk to, but then that slowly grew, which was awesome. And I think initially with hiring, so when I was coming out of college, a lot of times it was, oh, we already have a woman. We're not going to hire another woman. So that's where I was kind of forced out. Just maybe I was qualified, but they already had their female on their on-air staff. So they weren't going to hire another female to be doing sports. But what's great about Fox 5 right now, and when I came in, on lead sports anchor, our reporter is a female. And again, on Sports Extra, some Sunday nights, I'm anchoring. Jennifer Williams is the reporter out in the field. And my lead guest might be a writer or on-air personality. I'm trying to think what show we did a few weeks ago, and woman was my guest, and then I always like to feature an athlete or a coach, and that athlete was Carly Lloyd, and it was an all-female show, but we didn't need any PR about it. We didn't need anybody to look at us. That was the best sports show that night, and those were the big stories, and that's how went on the air. So Monica McNutt was my guest. She's the analyst for the New York Knicks on ESPN. She does the NBA, and that's what it was. Knicks were in the playoffs. So Monica McNutt was my analyst, and Carly Lloyd was my athlete, and that's how our show shaped up. So I think we've gotten past that, and it all just depends on what the executives are looking for. So I still think that area. So the challenge now is we need to get more females to be executive producers, presidents, CEOs of sports media companies.
Right. And obviously there will continue to be challenges, but you've been one of the people who have really made it, and it's incredible. And now there are many women. I'm doing a series on this podcast called 32 on 32, where I preview every NFL team season with a team reporter, and many of them are women now. Many beat reporters, many ESPN reporters, and it's incredible that now it's gotten to that point.
Exactly. And those are the people that I have on my show too. When we're breaking down a game or previewing a matchup. Exactly. Great job, Chase.
Thank you. Let's talk about the New York market a little bit. Obviously, there's so many fans and so many teams to cover, but not everyone always wants to hear about the Yankees or the Rangers or the Knicks. What are the keys to finding and kind of fitting in a unique sports story when you're on air?
So I think you have to have the most important stories at the top of your show, such as Yankees, Mets getting ready for the All-Star break. How are the All-Stars doing? What's that big story that day? But we have 14. I mean, there's so many minor league professional teams as well in our area. But we've got 14 pro teams, because don't forget about, your two, and it's two of everything, 3 in hockey, 2 MLS teams as well. We have the New York Liberty. You have the Gotham FC and the NWSL. And we also have the New York professional women's hockey team as well. So, there's a lot to cover. So my thing is, well, let's give us access, even if it's not an in-season story. So say there's, good example. In a couple of weeks, just because of scheduling, I have not been able to get the New York Sirens #1 draft pick on my show yet. And so we're going to have her on in a couple of weeks. She's still the #1 draft pick for our local New York hockey, women's hockey team. And she was #1 overall, by the way. And so that I'm still going to have her on the show, even though it's August. So it's about, just finding spaces to put these stories in. And it's a story. I mean, even a few weeks ago, I had Giants tight end Chris Manhertz on. We're not at training camp just yet, but he was having a camp and his own clinic, free clinic for local kids in the Bronx, where he went to high school, Cardinal Spellman High School. And I thought it was a good story for him, both to promote his camp, which is super cool, kids could go for free, but also tell his story. I never had a chance to really sit down with him and talk one-on-one about not playing high school or college football, and he's now a professional football player. Talked about his basketball career, how the Bronx shaped him, how going to Canisius in Buffalo, again, New York, how that shaped him, how it led him from college basketball to the NFL. Oh, because the Buffalo Bills were nearby and they were able to scout him. So a super inspirational story, how he's passing it on. And it was June. So it doesn't, it wasn't in the middle of the football season.
Right.
It's just when I could get access. And I think that's a great way to get good stories in. So whenever there's a good story in sports, it doesn't have to be about the Yankees or the Knicks. You find an opportunity to put it on. That's always my goal. It doesn't have to be in season, so to speak.
And just kind of try and find ways to fit that in. But obviously they're great teams, and you have to try to balance that as well. I want to kind of just focus on broadcasting for a minute. When you were I know you went to Maryland, I know an assistant on that women's soccer team while you were there was Jill Ellis. And then around 25 years after, there's a clip on your website where you're like talking to her after she's celebrating her FIFA championship. You're like, Tina Cervasio, Maryland, all that. Can you just explain the importance of like building relationships early in the broadcasting career and how it could help you like it did there?
I think with that, you want to meet anyone that you can, and you want to somehow keep in touch. So, I mean, when Jill Ellis was just learning how to become an assistant coach in soccer, she had just graduated, just gotten her master's degree. and she wanted to be a coach. She was hired as the assistant coach at Maryland. Now I could not play sports at a Division I level, just didn't have the talent, but wanted to be in it. So I was the team manager. So I worked closely with Jill. I mean, because she was keeping track of like stats and how many balls do we have at practice? Do we have all the cones? Like that was a lot of her stuff. And I was helping her with doing all those little jobs and things like that. So Jill and I got super close, and then we would go running together. So Jill was a great player herself, but now she's coaching. I wanted to be an athlete, had the athletic background a little bit from high school, and then we would go jogging in the morning on the road. So that's how we built a good relationship there. So you find commonalities with people, even if it's somebody you aspire to be like or you meet in the industry. What's common about them? Did you go to the same college? Do you like the same team? Is there a hobby that you have that is similar? Do you know same people? Have you traveled to the same places? So it's just a commonality that you can always keep up with that person and keep in touch. I think social media makes it easier. It's easier than email and text because you could like somebody's photo and comment and create a quick conversation there. You could
Sure.
keep up where people are and see what they're doing and continue that relationship's there. So that's what's important about that. Just like little tiny things, sometimes a note, and then email, say with a coach, a lot of things with different coaches, maybe I'll just shoot an email. Maybe they had a great game, or I'm not covering the team, but I see where they are. You just want to keep that relationship alive. Or for me, when former coaches from New York come into town, or former players, I try to seek them out pregame. Hey, just wanted to say hi. You're doing great. Congratulations, whatever the case may be. And congratulations on your Super Bowl, things like that,
Right.
and now they're coming back to play where they used to play. So it's just about reaching out and just really being constantly communicating, constantly reaching out. So when those moments come and you yell to somebody in the middle of a ticker tape parade, they know who you are. They remember who you are.
That's an incredible story. I did not know how close you were with Jill. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And obviously, she ended
Yeah.
up becoming this incredible manager.
Exactly. And just followed her career. And there was another game that the women's soccer team, U.S. women's national team, came into Red Bull Arena to play a friendly. And it was just one of those hanging from where the media sits. Hey, Jill, remember me? So it was actually the second time we did that, but that was a little closer. She was right there and I had media credentials. So that was a little different, but little things like that. Mm-hmm.
Let's focus on the New York market for a minute. Out of the New York Big Four sports teams, the last to win was the Giants in 2011. Yet New York fans continue to just stay passionate about their
I
team.
know. You say Big Four, but I get very
Yeah.
offended
Yep.
because the New York Liberty won the
Yep.
WNBA championship. Year before that, Gotham FC won the NWSL championship. And before that, NYCFC won MLS Cup. I know. Everyone wants to
Don't worry,
hear baseball, football.
we will get to the Liberty because I knew as soon as I said that, I'm like, oh, she's gonna get mad about the
There were
Liberty.
3 other New York championships since the Giants. So.
Right. But
But
just in
okay,
terms
back
of
to the Giants.
Just in terms of the Big Four and the ones that are, the most publicized, what is it about those fans in New York to continue to stay passionate and continue to sell out crowds, even when their team isn't doing so well? I mean, look at the Jets. They've made the playoffs in 15 years, and their fan base somehow always has hope.
I think a lot of it is historical and it's passed down. It's like in the DNA of families. My grandfather was a Jets fan. He got to see Joe Namath play, and it's kind of passed down through generations. And that's why they stay so loyal. And then you'll get somebody that'll veer off and be like, oh, the Cowboys are really good. I'd rather cheer for them. They're winning Super Bowl. Say they're growing up, they're 8 years old when there's, the big dynasty, and they become a Cowboys fan or something like that. And now with the advent of, and not just like, for me, the big thing when I was growing up was there was cable. So we could watch other teams on ESPN or TNT. And now we can watch any team we want, anytime we want, a replay of any game right on our phones. So it creates just a bigger fan base. But I think in New York, a lot of it's the DNA, a lot of it's the tradition, and it's just the sheer number of people. And even when the Jets moved their practice facility from Queens, they were out at Hofstra, and they came over to Florham Park in New Jersey. It created a bigger fan base there because then it added the locals. Well, I live in Morristown, and you know what? I go to Giant Stadium to see the Giants, but now like the Jets are here, and I could go to their practices, and see that or see them around town. How cool is that? So people become fans in that way. I think it's the sheer number of people, our population, but the meat of it is the passing down through generations. The Mets fans, the Yankees fans. I mean, so much of it from those particular teams, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Jets, the Giants, Mets, Yankees, of course, Giants and Jets, like the big sports where they have long histories. That's why the people are faithful. And I think the most devout fans, even more so, you mentioned the Jets, definitely the New York Knicks. Because when I was there, and people could say, oh, it's corporate, the rich people buy those seats on the floor. Yes, they buy those seats. But when I was a New York Knicks sideline reporter, and it was in 2009, they were ending the season going for their 17th win. Or might have been, it's happened twice. And the place was packed to the rim, and it was loud. Corporate people that are rich don't really cheer that hard for a team that has 16 wins on their last game of the year. It was so loud, like a playoff game atmosphere in Madison Square Garden, because the Knicks fan just loves their Knicks.
I
And
can I can
any
relate
game
to
they
that.
win
I
is a
was at
win.
Madison Square Garden a few years ago I'm a Wizards fan, so it was Wizards Knicks, and both teams were eliminated from the play-in at that point. It was like late in the
Yeah.
season, nothing mattered, all the guys were hurt, and it was as loud as can be, and it was the loudest place I've ever been in. It's a totally different environment in MSG. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. MSG, those Knicks fans are arguably the most devoted, as you know, as bad as it gets. And then when it's great, like the past couple of years with 50 wins, and this past year going to the Eastern Conference Finals, it's truly magical and out of this world.
And I think that is what, again, I'm not a New York sports fan by any stretch, because my dad grew up in the DMV area, so I'm a Baltimore DC guy. But there is part of me that is kind of envy of this New York fan base, of how passionate and how loud they could be, no matter the situation. I will get to your New York Liberty. I know you mentioned it. They did win the championship last year, and they made the final the year before. They've been really a powerhouse in the WNBA. You're a sideline reporter for them, standing and observing from the sidelines. What has been so special about that group?
About the New York Liberty, I mean, it does start at the top, and they were, owned by the same group that owned the Knicks many years ago. I covered them then. I remember going to games when they first, right out of college, when they were one of the flagship franchises of the WNBA, watching players like Teresa Weatherspoon and Kim Hampton and Sue Wicks, and then on to the era of Pappy Pondexter, of course, Becky Hammond in between there a little bit when she came to play. So I have seen the whole arc of the history of the New York Liberty. And this group at the top is when Clara Wu Tsai and Joe Tsai purchased the team and saved the New York Liberty because they were playing in Westchester at that point, and brought them to Barclays Center. And it was a weird transition because COVID slipped in for a year there, so we couldn't have fans, and then it was limited fans. And the amount of money that they had put into the team, whether it was the facilities right there within Barclays Center, and now they're building them a $1 billion facility in Brooklyn, unbelievable practice facility, you name it, offices, everything. They're building that for them now. The time and attention to detail that they put into their staff, from CEO Kia Clark down to this wonderful woman, Shayna Renee. I just call her Shayna Renee all the time. Stevenson is her last name. She is the head of marketing. She created the atmosphere that you have there. Now, good basketball creates an atmosphere. We know we're just talking about the Knicks, but the way that it attracts such an amazing crowd, from young kids to the old school generation, Brooklyn fans. We know New York is a basketball city. They are coming to games for the quality of basketball, but the atmosphere with Big Ellie the elephant, but also just the integration of the crowd. And whether it's, you could keep your kids happy with the elephant and the dance team, and then you're going to keep the hardcore basketball fan just invested with championship level basketball. Then you have your general manager that they brought in, Jonathan Kolb, and the way he built a super team. I mean, we see it in the NBA. You have to build a super team. And he did. He built that super team with Breanna Stewart, already drafting. She was already on board. Sabrina Ionescu had already been there, bringing in Jonquel Jones, another former MVP. Great talent like that, a deep bench. And then you take that, they challenge the Aces, then they come back and they win the championship the next year. And now you look at the Liberty as a standard and the impact they have on the rest of the WNBA. Every game, when they come into Barclays Center, there is a star now on every team. Whether they're drafting the Caitlin Clarks or the Paige Beckers, or the stars that built them, and they're getting recognized, like a Skylar Diggins Clark, players like that. Asia Wilson, of course. I mean, that's a star-studded team, that Aces team. Kelsey Plum, love it. She leaves the Aces. She's a star on the Sparks. And it's just really incredible, the way that you look at the impact that the Liberty continue to have. They have set the standard. It's and just the atmosphere is great. Every game, Chase, is sold out the last 2 years. It is so loud. I wear, just an example. I have to wear stadium noise canceling IFBs for the Liberty games.
Wow.
There's some football games I do. I don't even have to wear it. I just wear the little IFB in my ear. And going back to the Knicks, I mean, it was loud in there, but I never used the state. It was, the big games. I had to put the stadium mics in. I have to use stadium earphones rather every single game. It is that loud. It is that loud. I mean, they just came back from 19 points the other night to win that I just covered. And what was great now is the fans, and they're feeding out into the plaza there, Barclays Center, and they're hanging out because it's a summer sport, so it's beautiful outside when they get out, whether it's 10 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the evening. And everybody hangs out and chants for the Liberty. It's got like a European soccer vibe, these Liberty fans, because they're chanting. They have signs. They've got scarves, and they're hanging out for hours after the game celebrating the win. It's amazing.
Right. And I think that's part of the reason why you see the growth of the WNBA is because you have these passionate fan bases, particularly for the amazing teams as well, and then those amazing players as you were talking about, and that's contributed to what's been right now the best era of WNBA basketball, just in terms of viewership and in terms of entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. And the Liberty have been a huge part of that, obviously winning the championship and making the final the year before. Let's talk about baseball for a minute. We're heading into the All-Star break. It's been a rocky road for the Mets and Yankees over the past month. How should both fan bases feel heading into that All-Star week?
I felt pretty good watching Sean Manaea come back and pitch last night for the Mets. So that is a great sign as their bullpen, they're going to get Senga back. They're going to, getting healthy. I mean, that's the story every year and for every team. So it's about getting healthy.
Sometimes it's the healthiest team in any sport just to win. That's sometimes all it takes.
That's sometimes, exactly. And when you have all your parts and the team that your general manager and your front office built, they're built a certain way, but you need all those parts there to create wins and to beat other teams. So that was a good sign. I mean, yes, he gave up the game-winning run, but it was one run. It was unique. He came in, the team wasn't. It was. Didn't even. The 2 runs were scored after he came in for the Mets to make it a game. So thanks to Jeff McNeil. But and Soto's coming around now. I mean, when you look at his numbers, the dude's not at the All-Star game, and you're like, oh my gosh, this might have been a mistake. This was a little bit of a mistake. So we get it. It was a slow start. He was kind of quiet. Who knows what was going on? Hey, look, people are stellar generational players, athletes at that level for a reason. They don't think like us. They don't act like us. That's why I'm sitting here with headphones on, talking in my office. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right.
The generational play, there's something different. They're wired different. They work in different ways. So yeah, he wasn't playing great. It was a very difficult adjustment to him. He was used to the judge in the lineup kind of thing over there at the Yankees. It's a different situation. Hey, Carlos Mendoza had to get used to that lineup too. Maybe we got to move Lindor. Yes, he's phenomenal. Generational leadoff hitter, but we got to move things around. And then things started clicking, and the wins started coming back, and then Soto started clicking. So let's see, second half, you get a great player like that playing with a chip on your shoulder. I think opponents are in trouble, right? Opposing pitchers, especially with Soto.
And you mentioned Juan Soto also. How is he on the All-Star game? I mean, he's 12th in WAR and 12th in OPS. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers. How many guys have ever done that and not made the All-Star game that are qualified? I mean, it's got to be very few, if any.
Yeah, that's a good point. And now, as far as the Yankees, it's always like one bad sloppy game that just like derails everything that's going on with them, which happened. I'm just speaking of like last night's game and things like that. I still think the pitching's got to be key there. Yeah, I mean, gosh, what Paul Goldschmidt has done, in the lineup, and Judge just seems to he's so consistent this year. Had a little teeny slump, but man, he's been so consistent. And now now Giancarlo just hit his 4th home run. So you've got him back in the lineup. You've got the depth there with Ben Rice, both, being able to go behind the backstop, but also, be your DH.
3 belly bombs back on Friday, as I like to call them.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so, I still feel like they're going to mess something up though. I don't know what it is. I mean, last year, they had the worst defense. When you look at all the stats and all of that stuff, the New York Yankees had the worst defense in baseball. Yet there they were in the World Series. But how did they lose the World Series? All the problems in the field. 5th inning, game 5. So they still made it to the World Series. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's those minor things, whether it's, how Booney's working the bullpen, the ups and downs of the closer position. That's been a toughie this year, right? It's been kind of their huge strength when Weaver was switching back to Weaver. He's dealing, then he gets hurt. Hasn't been the same since he came back. I mean, and I feel like a lot of us are at fault. Like it was like early May. We're like, Subway World Series, let's go. I mean, we were all in on it. Now we're like, ooh, somebody better make the World Series from New York, So, but I think it's going to be a great second half of the season, and we'll see. The
and
ups
it
and
just shows you
downs
too.
make
You,
it
you
crazy.
can't overreact in baseball. It's 162 games. This conversation could be so different a month from now, and
A month.
the
That's all
exact
we
same
need.
2 months from now. You don't know.
And then we'll say there's still time. Like if it's mid-August, like 1 month from today, we'll be like, oh, but there's still time. You still have a month and a half. So all you have to do is make the playoffs. Just get in. So
the conversation always changes, especially in a market like New York. Real quick before we talk about one more topic and wrap it up, if the Yankees are an early playoff exit, is Aaron Boone's seat getting warmer?
I mean, that's what we say every year, right? And they just keep coming back. So we'll see. I mean, that is a hard one to predict. And it's a hard, because you know what, as much as fans will be like, you got to see him go. I mean, the man is taking the seat this week as the American League manager in the All-Star game. So, it's so hard to predict what the ownership and the management, because ownership decides on Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman decides on his manager.
Right.
So you could say that, yes, early exit. Who would have ever thought Tom Thibodeau would get fired?
And that's what I'm talking about. That chair just suddenly lit on fire out of nowhere. I mean,
yes, I was saying he's absolutely going to let go if they couldn't get out of that first round, because they struggled a little bit, the Pistons, and they're struggling against the Celtics. But then, I mean, you get there, you are, and then dealing with injuries. That was such a wild series. So, but still, how far they got?
Farthest point since 2000. I mean, 25 years.
And he ended up winning those series. So it showed you could come back and you can make some adjustments. So who would have predicted that? So I think it's so hard to predict. That's why you can't bet on coaching firings. You can't. That's a bad way to bet.
And I think overall, the thing with Tom Thibodeau, and I guess what shocked me about it is, a lot of fans right now that are getting mad that he's not using his bench as much. But in previous years, he loved to use his bench. He had a ton of depth. But when you give up, I feel like, more depth pieces to get Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have to go all in on your core guys. So I felt like it was a lose-lose situation. It oftentimes is in the New York market. How do you think the team will be affected this year, given the fact that, again, they had made their farthest point in the playoffs in 25 years, and now they have a new coach to reset things?
I mean, one of the first moves they made before even their head coach, Jordan Clarkson, build in depth, build in bench. Guy, former Sixth Man of the Year. So little things like that. Hopefully he's got, Mike Brown will have more to work with. And in just talking to former players that played for Mike Brown, so he's going to be, even if you have a star, he's going to get on him for not playing defense. So you get some of those games, and fans have, called out Cat a few times. He's going to get on him, and he's going to make him pay in whatever way. Is it sitting him for a couple minutes in the third quarter? To prove a point? Maybe. Is it risky? Sure. But he wasn't playing defense anyway. So yeah, okay, you might be taking away the rebounding and a couple, points. But if you're making stops, that's creates the balance. So I think that's what's going to be great about Mike Brown coming in. He will use his bench, but you need Leon Rose to build him a bench to make that rotation a little bit deeper. So that's what they're doing as well. They also, he's like not that, and Tibbs wasn't a phony by any means, but he's going to tell you why he made his decision, Mike Brown. He's going to tell you why he didn't get, Jalen Brunson back in a game or Josh Hart in a game for a certain situation. I made this decision then. We couldn't get the timeout, whatever the case, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be honest with the fan base, because he wants the story to be the same in his practice, in his locker room, out there in the media. Like it's what you see is what you get behind the scenes and out there. So I think that's going to create a little balance. And there's a lot of drama in New York, and the media and the fans and the sports talk radio. It's going to create the drama, the podcasts. So you see what you see is what you get, is what a lot of players have said. I'm trying to think what else they said about him. I mean, he's just like an energy guy. Which is kind of cool, because you've got like players like Josh Hart and Bridges, and where I like, Jalen Brunson is that nice, even keeled kind of guy. And so is Cat. They're kind of pretty, which is good. But he is an energy guy. I'm trying to think what else was really key about his style of play.
I mean, for me, what I think I love about Mike Brown as a coach is that he has the experience. He's played under or coach under Popovich. He's coached under Kerr, and then in his head coaching experience, overachieved with the Kings roster that clearly wasn't good because without him they've been worse. So I think that just that experience and his arc, I think New York fans should be excited about what he could provide. I'm not saying firing Thibodeau was the right answer, but he does seem like a decent alternative.
And he was who was available, so that worked out. Because I think Jason Kidd, a lot of those coaches not available. So, but I'm excited. You know what I mean? I don't think there's going to be a drop off by any means or a major reacclimation period. It is the same core roster that got to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. What is he going to switch to just that one next level to take it to the next level?
Tina Cervasio, this has been amazing. Real quick before we wrap up the show, what would be one key piece of advice to an aspiring sportscaster or sports anchor that wants to get to where you are now?
But Chase, you're doing everything I tell people to do. You're doing podcasts, you're doing social media. You're taking the use of technology that I didn't have when I was your age. You're using it now. So you are technically already a sports broadcaster. And you're meeting all the people that you need to meet. Keep those connections alive because you never know. It doesn't mean you're going to be best friends and going to dinner with certain people, but like 6 years down the road, oh, I did a podcast with that Chase, Chase Coburn. I'm going to hire him because he was good at this. So little things like that, you're doing all those things. So that's my biggest advice to any young aspiring sportscaster. Do all the things. Learn how to be a journalist first. Learn how to write. Learn how to ask really good questions. Be always curious and don't be afraid to ask a question. If it flops, move on to the next one. But your curiosity could create such a great piece of conversation or bring out such great information from a player, even if it's not X's or O's or game plan. You get into their mindset, their history and experience, things like that. Learn how to do play-by-play, learn how to be a radio host as well as a TV host, learn how to, do these podcast things, learn how to edit, learn how to be a producer.
Versatility, it's what you do. You do everything. Yeah,
exactly. Oops. I don't do well. I just knocked my microphone out. So hopefully, yes. So try to do it all and then you will find your niche. You cannot, it's about reps and experience and that is invaluable.
Tina Cervasio, thank you so much for that great piece of advice. And thank you for taking the time today to talk about the industry, some New York sports. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chase, for having me on and good luck to you and great work on all the hard work you're already doing.
Thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up here alongside the lead sports anchor for Fox 5 New York, Tina Cervasio. I'm your host, Chase Coburn, saying so long from Chase's Sports News.